Hey family, we are currently in our At the Movies collection, and today we're running it back to a message that I believe is going to be life-giving to your life right now. Before we get into the message, I want to let you know that you can stay up to date with us on social media by following us at The Becoming Church on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on podcasts. Now, while you're there, do us a favor and like, subscribe, rate, share, and comment. Not for our benefit, but so that other people can connect with that same life-giving message of Jesus. Now let's take a look at today's message.
The message is called The Lies About Singleness. So we are going to talk to you this morning if you are single in here today. So don't think like, I like this. Come on. We're going to talk to you this morning. And by married, excuse me, let me say this. When I say single, you're single if you're not married, right? So if you haven't said I do yet, you may be dating somebody, y'all may have been dating for 5 years, but if you're not married, you're single. So this is a conversation for you as well. And you're single. So here's what I'll say to you if you're single in here this morning. Singleness isn't a life to dismiss, but it's an opportunity to embrace. Singleness isn't a life to dismiss, but it's an opportunity to embrace. So many people are like, I'm tired of being single. Lord, when you gonna send me somebody? As a former youth pastor, a lot of our students of us, a lot of our former students are kind of like getting at that point where they're getting married and all kind of things happen. And I just remember, you be talking to them, and it's always about some girl, about some guy, and you can gauge how things were on a Wednesday night based on how like they were worshiping, or like if that girl or that guy came to Sunday morning service and the hands go up a little higher, like that word, they be all in it and just be getting it. But so many of them, and much more than that, like we would treat singleness as if it's something to dismiss. That I'm not even thinking about this, I'm not just trying to do anything, I'm just waiting and hurrying up to get through this moment of singleness. And I think what happens with that, we miss opportunities. We miss what God wants to do in us. We miss what God is actually preparing us for life. And we miss out on so many opportunities that are there in front of us because we look at our moment of singleness as a time to dismiss rather than something to embrace. And I think we even have to, if you are single, stop looking at like, well, I'm in a single season. Like, what is that? First of all, I get the word season, but Christians were speaking a way that you just be sitting there. You're like, what are you talking about? This seasons and all this stuff. Just speak normal. So if you have friends if you don't know Jesus yet or whatever, and you in here and you're like, yeah, I do got Christian friends that be talking about seasons and stuff. I'm like fall, winter, spring, summer. Like, what are you talking about? This is not the message. Paul lived his life, his singleness wasn't a season, it was his life. So I think the approach to take is not worrying about when this season is ending, but it's having a mindset of, I'm going to live the life that God has called me to live, regardless of whatever my marital status or dating status is. Because rushing to end your singleness could cause you to abort the very moments of life that shape you the most in who you are becoming. So we're talking about preparation, that God is calling us this year to a place of preparation. Well, if you're trying to abort something that God hasn't told you to leave, then you're missing the very moments that are part of that shaping and developing process of who you are becoming. Like I think about, here's what else that'll do. It'll cause you to lower standards that should not be lowered. It'll cause you to date people that you had no business dating. I'm thinking about my own experience and feeling that pressure of having to have someone, to know who it is, because I put in my mind that at this age, I've got to find somebody and we've got to be married at this point, at this age. And that was the worst thing that I could have done. This on again, off again stuff just wasn't healthy at all. And I sit back now and I think about how I could have been preparing myself, like not even for Katie, my wife, but just to be useful for the Lord, for opportunities that I could have taken advantage of. Because we're married with 3 kids. I can't take no crazy risk. Hey, Katie, we're going to do this and we're going to move, 2,000 miles across. Like, she's going to look at me like, who you been talking to? But when you're single and you're focused on where you're at, there are things that you can take advantage of, things that you can do. So it's not a life to dismiss, but it's an opportunity to embrace. And you're not embracing it because with the mindset that I'm preparing myself for who my spouse will be. No, this is about you and what God is doing in your life. That would just be a cool byproduct of it if that's the life that God has called you to. But we have to stop looking at the end goal is to find a spouse. That's not what it is. But it's to empty ourselves out and to make ourselves useful for God. So singleness is not a part of life to dismiss, but it's an opportunity to embrace. Look at Paul in 1 Corinthians 7:32. He says, I want you to be free from the concerns of this life. An unmarried man can spend his time doing the Lord's work and thinking of how to please him, or an unmarried woman. Meaning, this is what Paul was saying. Singleness is a gift, but here's the perspective of how some of us treat our singleness. This is how some of us treat our singleness. For some of us, singleness is a sentence to be freed from rather than a life to embrace. I'm so tired of being single. When I'm going to find somebody? All my friends got somebody to help me. I'm so lonely. I'm Mr. Lonely. I have nobody. Y'all know the song. Come on, y'all should sing with me. Now, don't do it. Right? But we treat singleness like it's a sentence, like we're in prison, like we can't live the life that God has called us to live. Listen, friends, singleness isn't a sentence to be freed from. It's a life to embrace. And when you don't embrace singleness, you will end up in a relationship that you had no business being in. You will lower your standards just so that you can show up to the event. Come on. Who you are and the value you have is worth much more than that to look good for some picture, to try to impress people who you can never impress because they don't want to be impressed by you. And so we will get into situations, get into relationships, and nobody cares, right? But meanwhile, that person is adding so much baggage to our lives. If I could think about the people who have been derailed because they have allowed themselves to get into relationships that they had no business to be in. Listen, if you are single, you are not living a less than life. Do you hear me? Because some of the people who are married are not happy. They're not fulfilled. They're not allowing the Lord to be the center of their lives and of their marriage. And if we're honest, they're people who should have never been married. And so you're seeing them and you're looking at them and you're saying, I want a life like that. Meanwhile, they go home and all they do is fight and argue and are never on the same page. So don't look to change your status because you think that'll make life look different. That'll make you feel fulfilled. No, you can live a full, vibrant, fulfilled life right now as someone who is single. Are you tracking with me this morning?
What a powerful message. If you'd like to connect with the full message, you can find it in the description below. We love you, church, and the best is still to come.